Hey, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel. Either way, welcome. I'm Nick, and I talk about things that I like, or stuff that I'm just generally interested in. So if you're interested in that as well, feel free to subscribe. Today, we're going to be taking a look back over the year and finding all of the best games that I've covered. You can think of this kind of like my own personal top 10 games of the year, but there's no particular order because I'm indecisive, and also I think a lot of games are equally amazing just for different things. But now with that out of the way, let's get into the games, shall we? Alrighty, so Paper Perjury is one that I've covered pretty recently. If you want more of an in-depth video about it, I'll link that here, but basically this is a game that just recently released, and I was fortunate enough to get early access to. It's kind of like a modern and a bit more indie take on the Ace Attorney franchise. You are a humble desk clerk at a police department, and on your first day, you're thrust into action to help a get-her-done detective get to the bottom of a tricky burglary/assault case. The basic gameplay involves showing up to a crime scene and poking around and asking some questions to try and get enough evidence to prove who done it. I love this game not only for the engaging gameplay, and it is engaging, but mostly for the stories and characters. These characters are all so well written, and it was a story that I actually wanted to get to the bottom of. And I think something that really helped was the fact that the investigation didn't simply boil down to clicking through a bunch of dialogue to try and find the part where they say that they did it explicitly. You actually have to think about what they're saying and keep everyone else's statements in your head and cross-reference them against each other in order to figure out if someone's lying. That was a totally new experience to me, personally, and while it's not probably the most revolutionary implementation of detective work in a game ever, it absolutely stuck out in my mind. Plus, on top of all of that, the art and music is amazing. This is absolutely one of those diamonds in the rough that I don't think enough people know about. So, if you're even remotely interested in detective work or detective games, I highly recommend Paper Perjury. But, speaking of diamonds in the rough, Tiny Glade is a game that I've covered a few times this year, both before it was released and after, and that, I promise you, is for good reason. Tiny Glade is a cozy little sandbox castle doodler where if you can dream it, you can make it. And this is one of the most creatively liberating games I think I've ever played. There are a lot of games that claim to let you just mess around with the environment and make whatever you want, and short of probably Minecraft, I don't think I've ever played a game that allows you to do quite as much as Tiny Glade. Now, to keep expectations in check, it's a much different concept than Minecraft or something like that, where Minecraft is a voxel-based game where you can build whatever you want. Tiny Glade is a procedurally generated castle doodler where you can create whatever you want. What's the difference? Well, where in Minecraft and the like, you build things up brick by brick to be exactly how you want, Tiny Glade does the building for you and allows you to just sit back and enjoy the designing aspect. And while you may think taking that direct control away from you would be a bad thing, I promise you it's not. Not only does it allow you to keep play sessions rather short if you want, making it perfect for a side monitor game, it's also the way they handle the procedural generation, which really makes the game stand out. I won't go too in depth here because again I have a whole video covering the specifics, but believe me when I say if you're as satisfied by the gameplay that I'm showing here as I am, you will not be disappointed. And speaking of games that didn't disappoint this year, Questmaster is, simply put, Mario Maker, but Zelda. That's really all you need to know. Where the Mario Maker games gave us the ability to customize and bastardize the core formula of Mario, Questmaster lets us do the same thing to The Legend of Zelda. Now to be clear, it's not Zelda, it's fully legally distinct from Zelda, so Nintendo can rest peacefully knowing that their precious IP is safe. However, it does take the dungeon mechanic, a mechanic which is, as far as I know, is not patented or anything like that, and allows you to break it down to its core components and mess around with it in all the ungodly ways that Nintendo never would. This is a game myself, and I suspect a lot of other people, have been wanting for a long time, and it's one that's so ridiculously obvious, I'm honestly incredibly surprised that we haven't gotten a proper iteration of it from Nintendo themselves. But where Nintendo drops the ball, you can always count on the indie space to pick it right up. Not only is the concept of this game brilliant, but the way that it's executed just adds to that with an incredible feeling of quality. I won't go so far as to say that it feels like Nintendo made it, because all the elements do have just a tiny bit of that legally distinct feel to them, but it does feel damn close to a first-party Nintendo game in terms of quality and polish. Overall, if the pitch of Mario Maker but Zelda appeals to you at all, you need to check out this game. Believe me, you won't be disappointed. But now, let's take a look at a game that also kind of feels, at first glance, like a ripoff. Fields of Mistria is a farming game which wears its Stardew Valley inspiration on its sleeve. However, as myself and other creators have correctly concluded, it is far from a simple Stardew reskin. Yes, it takes a lot from the tropes of that genre, but it is absolutely its own game in its own right. Not only is it obviously stylistically different, but they give the game a decidedly more fantasy spin. Plus, most of the more tedious or frustrating mechanics of Stardew, which I personally don't really love engaging with, have been fully overhauled to make them far less tedious to deal with. It's small things, like planting and watering crops being made just a little bit easier, your watering can not running out, being able to see which season a seed is best in and how many days it takes. Not all new stuff, but just overall, a lot of the tedium of Stardew is stripped away here and replaced with more interesting things like the social part of the game. Overall, its focus is less systems management and more socialization and collections. Plus, there's way more customization options, and you're able to switch up your look at any point in the game, too, which is a really cool thing for them to let you do. And with the new update, you get mounts and the actual ability to romance people now. Overall, the game seems to be getting a good level of support, and they seem to be listening to the community with those updates. Basically, if you're looking for a pastel fantasy Stardew with character portraits that you want to and slightly easier gameplay, Fields of Mistria is for you. Where Stardew kind of feels like a retro game itself, Fields of Mistria feels like it takes all the good from that retro game and none of the bad. But now for our next game, which is a bit different than most of the others on this list. This will be a bit of a shorter one because the concepts and appeal are extremely obvious right up front. Oddada is a music production tool/game. You can think of it kind of like Baby's First Mixer, except you don't need to collect or create any of the samples. Instead, they're given to you and you just kind of toy around with them and make the beat that you want. It's a really simple game, but it's done so incredibly well, and I've seen a ton of comments on the video that I showed it in, which talk about either how much their kid would love it or how much their kid does love it. Now, I won't lie, I'm not particularly musical as a person, but of all the instruments that I was made to play growing up, this is the only thing that's ever actually gotten me even a little interested in creating music. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that it holds your hand the whole way, and while it's absolutely possible to make a bad beat, they always have a certain something to them that I kind of just can't quite put my finger on. Plus, you can always just go back and do it again if you really don't like what you made. I don't know, I think this game is just one of those games that not enough people know about, and I want to bring as much attention to it as possible. It's a really great tool for making funky beats, and the presentation is unparalleled in any other music software I've ever seen. And to be fair, that's because this is a game and not professional software, but still, it's amazing, and you need to give it a try if this gameplay has at all piqued your interest. But let's move away from small indies for a bit and talk about 3 of the AAA games that released this year that I just couldn't put down. Okay, I'm going to get all 3 of these out of the way in one go because I'm sure you're sick of hearing what is essentially marketing for these games. I'll start with Echoes of Wisdom. Aside from its claim to fame as the first ever Legend of Zelda game to actually have you play as the titular Zelda, this is a return to form that I've wanted to see ever since I finished Link's Awakening a few years ago on original hardware. This is another in their now pair of top-down isometric Zelda games following 2019's Link's Awakening, though this isn't a direct sequel or anything like that. But let's talk about why I like it. It can basically be boiled down to how the Zelda team continue to break down and rebuild the Zelda formula. And this game really does feel like if you took classic top-down Zelda and brought it into the modern day, which is essentially what they did. If you're used to the rules and restrictions of top-down Zelda games, and those are your favorite in the franchise, you owe it to yourself to play Echoes of Wisdom. If the $60 price puts you off, for one, I think it's absolutely worth every penny. I don't think for a second, just because it's top-down and kind of chibi means it's not worth full price, but also you're fortunate enough that you can just get a used physical copy for probably around $40, and at that price it's an absolute steal. But that's enough about Nintendo. The next AAA game I want to highlight is the new Indiana Jones game. If you, like me, grew up on Indiana Jones and the movies and the TV shows, this is a must-play for you. If you've played the old point-and-click games like Fate of Atlantis and are looking for more of that but with a modern spin, this is the game for you. I don't know how to describe it other than that it feels like being in an Indiana Jones movie. You really do feel like you are Indiana Jones, but also at the same time like you're a little kid again sitting on the couch watching Raiders. It's frankly astonishing just how well this game sells the experience. And if you, like me, thought that because it was made by Machine Games, that this would basically be an Indiana Jones reskin of Wolfenstein, you will be happily surprised. This is probably the best piece of new Indiana Jones media since The Last Crusade, and that was made in 1989. If you like Indiana Jones, you owe it to yourself to play this game, period. Full stop, that's it. Okay, that's enough about that. Next up is Infinity Nikki. This is a bit more of a contentious game. It's the only free-to-play game on this list, and I don't put it here lightly. I know the free-to-play aspects of the game are a non-starter for a lot of people, and that's totally fine. I fully understand. However, if the extremely non-invasive implementation of those free-to-play mechanics is something that you can get past, this is an amazing dress-up game unlike anything else I've ever seen. Again, I'll keep this short, and I have a full video on it that I just released talking about it more in depth if you're interested, but I'll just say if you like dress-up, or maybe you're a trans girl, or maybe you were just never allowed to play with dolls growing up, you need to check out this game however you can. It's available on every platform, and again, it's totally free to play, so while you can spend money on it if you want, you absolutely don't have to, and the game is fully 100% enjoyable without spending a dime. Frankly, I think this is an absolute steal of a game. It's more well-polished than most AAA games that release for $70 these days, and again, while it's a free-to-play game, the game itself is more focused around the story and mechanics than trying to extort you for your money. All in all, these are probably the only AAA games I've played this year that I felt were fully worth the price of entry. And if they were made for you, if you're within their target audience, they're 1000% worth your time. But now, back to indie games that deserve a spotlight. Maquette is a trippy puzzle game where you explore the relationship of two people through small vignettes which represent different phases in their relationship. The main mechanic of the game is centered around playing with scale. The whole thing takes place in this courtyard with a large maquette in the center. That maquette reflects the real-life courtyard, so anything you place in the courtyard in the maquette is placed in the real-life courtyard and vice versa. This is probably one of the most interesting puzzle mechanics I've ever seen in a game, and the solutions you can come up with to work around this mechanic are really intriguing. This game made me use my brain in ways that most other games never even attempt to. And add to that the story, which is woven in, and you have a really great recipe for engagement. I'm not generally much of a puzzle game kind of person, but this is one that I really enjoyed playing through, and a lot of that came from the really interesting core mechanic, which is central to all the puzzles. If you're into puzzle games and you like a bit of story to go along with those puzzles, you won't be disappointed with Maquette. But now, on to the last, but absolutely not least game on this list, Little Kitty Big City is a game about a cat finding their way home after falling off of your windowsill. This is just an incredibly charming game. If you like cats, you need to give it a try. It's not too intense, it's very much not like Stray, aside from the surface level similarities of being a cat on a mission. Where Stray was a serious and contemplative journey through the post-apocalypse, Little Kitty Big City is a wholesome jaunt through what I'm pretty sure is intended to be modern-day Japan. You have all kinds of little side quests, like picking up shinies, befriending other animals, and gathering the most adorable little hats to dress up your cat. Again, if you're a cat parent or just a cat lover, this is a game that needs to be in your collection. There's so much to do, and every character that you meet has a really charming and quirky personality, and it's just so much fun to discover the city and find all the new things around every corner. There is a progression system. You slowly build up your stamina so that you eventually have enough to climb back to your house, but you need to do different tasks around town in order to build up that stamina. It's just a really great game to play if you want some lighthearted fun. If you're into cats and just love watching them do what they do, you'll love this game. It's a decidedly more animated and exaggerated take on cat behavior than, say, Stray, but I think that's for the best. I think the more campy vibe really helps give the main cat charm and helps them appeal to the player more than the cat in Stray may have. All in all, this is just a really amazing game if you or someone that you know is really into cats. And if you have the time, this would be a great game to unwind with after work. I really highly recommend you give it a shot. But that's all. That's my top 10 games that I played in 2024. Now, obviously there are way more, and I'm sure I missed your favorite game of the year, so please do let me know what you think that I missed down in the comments. It's always great to get recommendations from all of you, which, actually speaking of, if you want to have a bit more of a one-on-one talk with me or other like-minded cozy game interested people, you should come join the channel's Discord. I'll link it down in the description if you're interested. We talk about all things cozy over there, so if that sounds like a place that you want to be, feel free to join us. We would love to have you. Other than that, though, I'll just say thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another video. I hope you have a great rest of your year, and as always, happy gaming.